Hello everyone, thank you LION+MASON for the opportunity to talk tonight. My talk's beyond the checkpoints, with the checkpoints being the web content authoring guidelines. I'm not sure if all of you've heard, but a bit of a prerequisite. We're not really going to go into the 1 in 5 stuff. This is more about practical use of how you implement that and foster change in your organizations. So digital accessibility has been gaining significant momentum for a number of years. Many companies switching on the need for websites and services to work for all users, all journeys. So we're going to go through a few things. Hopefully at the end, some future-proofing that you can all implement. It's pretty easy stuff, and some stuff we can take away. That's me, Davies. So my current role, work for Leeds Building Society. I'm a senior accessibility consultant and user experience designer. It's an awful long way of saying I look after the accessible output of teams. I'm not going to go into the whole pitch of me. We're just going to get cracked straight on because I'm a bit short on time. To be able to ensure accessibility of your websites, you need to understand how its visitors use them and what you should pay attention to when optimizing your websites for their specific needs. Now, you might find it surprising that the first thing we'll be talking about is explain our good old friend plain traditional HTML. No bells, no whistles, just HTML. You may feel that being a serious senior full-stack developer, this topic would not offer anything new to you. But acknowledging the fact that most accessibility problems are just the result of bad HTML, you may be surprised about the value that you can provide here. It most certainly changed the way that we look at HTML and its use cases throughout things. So it may be the most natural thing in the world for you to read a website on a traditional screen and control it using a mouse and keyboard. Most, I would assume, browse the internet with that method. But you may not be familiar with some alternative devices, may be surprised by how many of the users worldwide actually rely on these devices to do the exact same thing that everyone would just naturally go use their phones for. Okay. So users, it's important to remember that accessibility is not just a box ticking exercise. To create genuine accessible websites, we must think about accessibility from the beginning of the design process. Once it's gone live, that's not the time to be assessing your actual accessibility needs. So this does mean considering the needs of all users, not just those with disabilities. So to start then, we're going to go into some facts and figures. So these are almost UK based, but you can sort of extrapolate them to the rest of the world there, with dyslexia being 10%, autism and so forth and so on. One thing that isn't on there though, while this may not affect everyone in the room, what may affect is tiredness, limit time, distractions. How many people have been in work, no subtitles on a video, can't listen to it? You know, there's certain scenarios in that sense where not just the subtitles would help everyone in the room, it would actually be the only way some people can actually consume that content. So, what do we do about it at Leeds Building Society? This was the original objective that my mentor and manager and me set out, which was to create websites and digital applications that all user types can access and use easily. Be trusted advisors to the colleagues around the society and become a prominent representative in the financial industry for how to embed accessibility that makes a real positive difference to customers' lives. Part of the reason why I'm here speaking tonight. So this is our roadmap. It needs to be a little bit updated. We've moved on a little bit since here. So it started with me being hired. We did an audit of our website. We also do an audit of our competitor website to see where are we in the market compared to, you know, how we can deliver our things. Tickets logged for where we need to remediate our things on our site and our assets. Then we produced our first accessible PDF, bit of a milestone for us, and we got the first video out the door with subtitles default as part of the design brief before it went live as well. I'm not going to go into the rest of them. The rest of them are pretty standard for the industry, but I just wanted to use that. One of the difficulties that we had with the way our organization is set up, as we are a society, there is a lot of committees and things that we need to attend to be able to get the change delivered across the area. Now, we went with the view that we were going to make our website AA compliant. That was our aim. What we came away with was that the entire board agreed that the entire society should be a AA compliant employer and workplace, meaning our intranet, our email, when you walk into the building, it all encompassing, so they actually took it multiple steps further than we were actually anticipating, and that was part of the buy-in was terrific on our end. So what do we do about it then? So some of the tools that we use to assess where we are then. So we use quite a few. Dynamapper, Fair Finance, UserZoom, Content Square, SortSite, my favorite, Figma, Azure, the Creative Suite, JAWS, NVDA, Pack3, and the Accessibility Insight for Windows Checker. Now, most of these are free tools other than SortSite and Dynamapper, readily available, can pretty much give you a holistic view of site-wide what you are looking at, and what sort of things you're going to need to remediate, what you're going to need to prioritize as well. And also some free Chrome tools, ARC Toolkit being one of the industry standards, as well as Axe. Wave is very good if you need to visually display to somebody who doesn't have the understanding of what you're actually looking to share. I will share these slides as well later, so you can have that as well. I did note this. Personally, I put Lighthouse on here. It's one of the most widely used tools, very Google-centric. Only problem is it only looks at 60% of what the actual guidelines maintain. So 100% rating in Lighthouse doesn't give you an accessible site, but unfortunately it's built into Chrome, so a lot of metrics are built on that basis. It doesn't go far enough. Okay, so show of hands, has anyone seen these posters before? They're very famous, yeah? So what I started with you, instead of going straight into, there's 78 checkpoints, we all need to know them and be able to speak them, but straight from the heart. We started with these, where simple, actionable things that you can do and actually explain where you're going and what now, these are available off the GDS website. I would hope they would have updated them. They are quite famous for being old at the moment, but what we've done is we've actually put these up and around our office space to remind our users who you're actually looking to further develop for, alongside a few others, and then we use these to actually influence what our personas are actually telling us to do as well. So how do we implement things? I don't know why that's digital experience, but okay. So this was our UCD design. It looked a lot better because I sent a wrong aspect over, so that's a bit squished and a bit condensed. Now, this is how it stood beforehand, which was discover, define, design, validate, dev support, then repeat the process. Get that I got that a bit wrong. I don't think I'm going to be forgiven for that. So what we looked to add is a review for accessibility as part of the design phase. So before we've sent anything over to any development, started anything, we've shifted it as far left to ensure that at least it gets, as we send our designs out, we know we're not going to be causing barriers for our users, and that it's going to be able to be accessed by everyone. We also pull in what is not on this slide. We also pull in our analytics and SEO at this point to be able to prove our metrics of how we are, how successful were we, and are we ensuring that all the barriers have been removed so that we can get our product in as many people's hands as possible. So the combination of our personas that embed accessibility in, plus early stage review of wireframes, we also look to add things like code snippets for devs if possible. But we've actually changed the route then. We're actually looking to train more so than provide the code, so that the squads themselves, in the agile nature that we work, they can work more freely and there's no bottlenecks. But most importantly for me is always an audit review before anything goes live. So even after we've done this, even after we've put the people through training, we still review before we go live to ensure that nothing has changed or nothing has gone out of scope since then. So these are our new personas, where we've actually put in how to design for this individual, but then also tied certain levels of disabilities to our various personas, and these marry up with our demographics of who we're actually looking to sell to as an organization as well. This has grown exponentially since we originally started. We thought we were okay with the personas, and we've sort of added more and more as it's gone on. One of the big drivers for this was consumer duty. That is recently coming out. So from a sort of tell us once principle from the FCA, one of the new personas that we've added is an individual that would only like to do things online, that wouldn't want to go into the shop, that wouldn't want to ring up, that may not be able to ring up. So it's an ever-expanding thing that we've done, but it's very invaluable to our actual designers to actually show this is who we are actually looking to create our content for. This is Guy. He has dyslexia and a few other bits in there, but some of the frustration bits is not what we had before. By including them, then it sort of helped our designers really sort of get into what they're actually looking to achieve. So that's Ellis up in our office. We scattered these throughout the building. Some of the content is different throughout there, but we also produced a booklet so that we have collaboration spaces in our office, which is a lot of our actual booklets will remain there, so that if somebody does want to borrow our office space, that they could maybe take one of these books away and see who are they designing their products for as well. What this led us to do, though, was create an empathy builder. Now, within the sort of WCAG set of rules then, there are some areas that are looked more into than others. It is a working group, it's a working document. They have certain levels of things that they will target, but then there's other bits where they're kind of let down. So we targeted dyslexia amongst one of the other things that isn't given the level of attention that we thought is required. So we actually put this in the hands of as many people as we can within the Leeds Building Society, so that we can actually see if you are going to send someone an email or if you are going to ring them, have you considered most of this when you're actually carrying out your roles? All right. So for the next bit here, we're going to go into the bit of the clunkiness of WCAG. So as much as I love the guidelines, it's a brilliant place to start. I have some problems with it essentially. So since 1999, the W3C WCAG have provided a solid basis for implementation of accessible web design. However, it is argued that in the context of evaluation and policy making, inappropriate reference to WCAG may lead to serious practical difficulties in implementation and monitoring an effective accessibility policy. I'm going to rewrite that for readability. That was difficult. So there's a pressing need for framework that guides appropriate application of WCAG in a holistic way. So taking into account diversity of factors such as context of use, audience capability, and also access environment. In particular, the promotion of W3 technologies at the expense of widely used and accessible proprietary technologies may be problematic, as is the reliance of WCAG on compliant browsing technology. So when people fall foul of the checkpoints then, what can be done? So assessment of the level to each success criteria, this is where it starts. So assignment of the level to each success criteria starts with A, AA, AAA to each success criteria. This is currently flawed as a practical tool for helping website creators prioritize their accessibility work, as the levels don't take into account two important aspects of modern website creation: the vast variety of purposes of a website, and also the cost benefits of each success criterion. So if we were to say the cost of producing maybe subtitles versus adding alt text to something, well, there's two very different places that you would even go for those. One is a videographer, the other then is your web developer. Very different cost patterns, some capabilities you may not even have. So assignment of the level to each success criteria. Yeah, to give the simplest example of the problem of purpose, criteria 1 to 5 requires all pre-recorded video content to be enriched with audio description. This means that for a site that includes a video to achieve AA, it needs to include audio description on all of its pre-recorded video. So my example against this would be, if this was as strictly adhered to, YouTube as a site would not exist. So you wouldn't be able to upload a video without actually having extensive subtitling knowledge to be able to do it. Would it be as successful? Maybe not. I don't think it would really be as rich in content as it would if it required such a heavy load from its actual upload user base, essentially. One of the reasons, and this is a particular one where WCAG can be considered quite anti-creative. You have 78 things you have to follow, you can't color outside the lines. For this one in particular, I think YouTube make a reasonable case to say we have auto-generated subtitles, we encourage people to upload, we give separate tools to actually do this. You don't need to go into SRT, write in time code and things of that nature. But it can be very difficult because this is outside of what would be your standard sort of web dev type work that they would look to carry out. And there's the simpler example of cost benefits then. So the number of people who benefit from captions being provided on video content is huge, and the cost is reasonable. So Facebook made a change where if you put subtitles on a video, if somebody is scrolling past muted, they automatically load at the bottom. Don't know if anyone noticed the change, but what that has meant is that you can now listen to things where ordinarily you maybe wouldn't, such as out in public, if you don't have headphones, things of that nature. But comparatively, the number of people who benefit from audio description or alternative to video is very small, but the cost is large. Yet none of this information is mentioned in the success criteria at all. It is a pass or fail. And both of those are set at single A as well. So by failing either of those, you're not getting a compliant website either, regardless of any other work that you put in, such as headings and alt text and all that kind of good stuff as well. So this means that individual organizations trying to make their sites accessible have usually two options. Stick dogmatically to the level of each individual WCAG success criterion, however much they think it does or doesn't make pragmatic sense. This is generally done in this guise by organizations that are legally complied to require and actually comply, councils, railways, police sites, things of that nature. Usually call these sort of category 1 organizations versus sort of others which do their own cost benefit analysis of each success criteria and they decide whether or not they go into comply. Are we going to comply with subtitling? Are we going to comply with adding sign video to our site as well? Are we even going to do the alt text of things? So a bit of future proofing. So 2.2 has been a bit of a mythological beast for the last 2-3 years. It was meant to come out, I think, in 2021, and we're still waiting for the draft to be published. Don't have it on good authority, but we're looking at August this year where 2.2 is going to go live. Now, one of the things, the big differences between 2.1 and 2.2, there's an additional 8 criterion, and 3 of those are based around how you focus around a button or an element on the page. Now, don't know if anyone's aware of the corrected box, just a dotted line. That is the current standard. You see the dotted line, we're good to go. 2.1 is going to take that a step further where you're going to actually need to have a solid CS pixel line going around things to be able to achieve AA compliance. Now, AAA compliance is that the contrast between these is also over 7.1 if you know your contrast ratios. This is relatively easy to fix for a developer. It's done within CSS. You can pretty much, obviously you should test everything as much as possible, but this is something that if you do this now come August, you would already be able to claim half of what the new actual regulations are going to actually state there as well. Now, I do apologize. Normally we have subtitling along here, but I sent a rubbish presentation over, so it hasn't worked. I'll take the hit on that one.
We'll take the blame completely for that. So,
good man, good man.
Things to learn from.
So that's pretty much the end of my presentation.
Thanks very much, David.
Thank you.